camera open, so I can't see you. But you, I hope that you can see me and can hear us. Today I have Avi, Professor Avi Picard, as my co-host, and he's also going to be responsible for the chat. So if there's any problem relating, of course, to the lecture, not problem like in your life, so you can call him or basically text him, and he will try to solve it out. If he can solve it out, I'm an archaeologist, so if it's a destruction thing, I can help you. But except that, probably you need to find someone else to speak with. So as soon as Avi will tell me that he starts recording, we're going to start our lecture. Avi?
I start recording and you can start the lecture.
Okay.
We are okay.
Okay, so we have somebody that says that there's bad echo, and now also there is a bad echo. When I'm talking right now, can you hear me? Please react in the chat. Can you hear me? Sound terrible. Fine. Okay, Sharon, think that I'm fine. It's okay. Bill Rogers says okay.
You are okay. I can.
Okay. Okay, Avi, but they're re-saying that it's within an echo, so I don't know why it is. So
I think you should go.
Please, with you on the chat. So if there's a problem, you're going to solve it out so that I concentrate in the lecture. So first of all, good evening to all of you. Good morning to some of you. Noon for others. My name is Dr. Amit Dagan. I'm from Bar-Ilan University, and I was supposed to give this lecture on Jerusalem Day. Unfortunately, due to the world condition that we're living in, we need to postpone my lecture, and I'm going to give the lecture now. And it's related to a very interesting story that happened in Jerusalem. Happened in Jerusalem in the 19th century. We call it the Raiders of the Lost Ark, the unbelievable story of Parker's expedition. And although most of the lecture that you heard are related to research that my colleagues and I are dealing with in our daily life in university, but this interesting story is combine everything. You have passion for archaeology, you have passion for Bible. We will hear about people all over the world, from Africa to Europe to America. Everybody want to take, or to at least to touch, or to be close to something that related to the biblical times. And before we're going to start our lecture, I will raise the question, who took my holy ark? And this is a very interesting question, because everybody knows about the Ark of the Covenant, but do we really know where can we find him? So many people, like this guy in front of us, will claim that it's probably in a storeroom in area 51 or something locked. But if you're going to be more serious, and I know it's a bit hard, but if you're going to be more serious about this subject, what do we know about the Lost Ark? So if we're looking at sources, so before we're going to start dealing with sources from the Second Temple period that they're dealing with that subject more, I want to go back to the biblical times. And we're talking about an area or a period that we call it the Iron Age. During the time of the Iron Age, or the transition from late Bronze Age to the Iron Age, approximately 1200 BCE, we know that in the desert, God instructed Moses what are the different objects that's supposed to be at the shrine. And when we're talking about the ark, we know the shape of it. We don't really know the size of it, although they're using the term cubit, but we don't really know what is cubit, because there are different suggestions by scholars. Cubit is basically the size from your elbow until the edge of the middle finger, but each one of us have a different cubit. So it could be between 44 centimeters to 54. Some people even claim 64, some people even claim less. So we know that it's supposed to be a square box, and it's supposed to have two wooden handles from both sides, and it have a lid. It's made of a tree, and it's coated with gold. And we know that the ark was brought to Israel. We know that according to the Bible, that while the Israelite and the Philistine were fighting in a place it's called Eben Ha'ezer, today in modern time recognizing the area of Rosh Ha'ain, the modern settlement of Rosh Ha'ain and Kfar Kasem, route number 5, if some of you are looking at map. And we know that the Philistines took the Ark of Covenant from the field and took it back to Philistia. Later, we know that the Philistines sent it toward the mountain of Judea. It reached Bet Shemesh. Again, we are following the Bible. Then from Bet Shemesh, it will reach a place it's called Kiryat Yarim, today Abu Ghosh Arab village, and Telstone, also a very known village, while you are standing up toward Jerusalem. And then from there, it will get to the Jerusalem itself until it finds its location in the temple that was constructed by David's son Solomon. After that, we don't really know where is the Ark. And if we're looking at sources, so I want you to look at 2 Maccabees, chapter 2. And over there, it says that the Ark of Covenant was placed in a secret place, very close to the time of the exile. And the one that's responsible for that, he was the Jeremiah the prophet. Jeremiah the prophet. And it's very interesting because it says that Jeremiah took it and placed it on Mount Nebo. Mount Nebo, Jabal Musa today, we're going to mention it later, and you can see the picture, the nice observation point from Mount Nebo. He put it inside a cave, and it's interesting because after he placed the ark inside the cave was magically sealed, and the route was really unknown how people can get there. And it's supposed to appear again only when the sons of Israel will come back to the land of Israel. And by the way, by saying that, you understand that when the British mandate started in Israel, and all of us know about the Balfour Declaration, many scholars saw it as a sign that now the sons of Israel are about to come back and the cave's supposed to be open, and when we can find the ark on Mount Nebo. So that's from the time of the Maccabees. I'm talking about the 2nd century BCE. When you're taking sources from the Talmud, from Masechet Yoma, for example, you can see over here that the rabbis arguing or discussing between themselves where can you find the ark itself. And when we look at that, we can see that the Rabbi Eliezer says that it's in Babylonia. And Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, took it with all the other objects after he exiled the people of Judea. We can see at Yoma 53, the second Daf Shtayim, second page, that Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai says that it's also to Babylonia, but Rabbi Yehuda, son of Lakish, says that it's in Jerusalem. And why it's in Jerusalem is basically based on the Bible itself that related to Josiah, that he basically marked a place that it could be hid over there. So we can see that also the rabbis, and we're talking about the Talmud, the Babylonian Talmud, so from the 5th century, although they commemorating tradition that they are earlier, arguing between themselves, the ark's supposed to be or in Babylonia or supposed to be in Jerusalem. And also the relation, or they discussing who was the one that's supposed to place the ark in a shelter or in a hidden place. So they're not mentioning the story of the Maccabees, but they related to, if it's in Jerusalem, it's related to Josiah. What I'm saying is that also the scholars, the biblical and the Talmud scholars, don't really know the answer. They don't know where can you find the Ark of Covenant. When we look into other traditions, we have a very known tradition that comes from the area of Ethiopia today. We're talking about a text, it's called Kebra Nagasht. Kebra Nagash, and that's the story that the Christian community at Ethiopia relate themselves to the lineage of King Solomon. According to their faith, Queen Sheba, when she visited King Solomon, something happened there, but it's not for that time of hour. And after 9 months, we have a baby. The name of the baby, according to their text, is the son of the wise man. The son of the wise man, Ibn al-Hakim. And it was recognized by the people at Ethiopia as Menelik I. And according to their text, Menelik I brought the Ark of Covenant with him to Ethiopia. And until today, Christians in Ethiopia see it as the place that if the Ark of the temple is located in Ethiopia, they're celebrating it each year. And of course, some people try to look for it over there. And I'm not going to start talking about theology and science right now, but this tradition that we call, or they relate to King Solomon, this book probably is from the medieval period. And when you're reading the book, you have many traditions from the Bible, many traditions from Christianity and the New Testament, and of course, more information about different sects and groups. But the beautiful pictures that you see over here, for example, over here on the bottom left, you can see King Solomon and you can see Queen Sheba meeting together. And look at the scene over here at the last row, the 4 scenes over here, you can understand what's going on over there. And that's the connection. And many people think that the tomb itself, or the Ark itself is in Ethiopia. But those are modern traditions. But if we're trying to look for other possibilities, who could take the Ark? Because the Bible is not talking about the Ark. And after he was brought to the temple, we don't hear about him anymore. When you're reading the text, or when we're reading the text, we have several events. One of them is very interesting in the 10th century BCE. At the 10th century BCE, and I'm going to read from Books of Kings, and you can see, and it came to pass in the 5th year of King Rehoboam, he was the son of King Solomon, we're talking about the end of the 10th century, that Shishak, king of Egypt, came up against Jerusalem. And he took away the treasures of the house of the Lord and the treasures of the king's house. He even took away all, and he took away all the shields of gold of Solomon, which Solomon had made. We have over here a description, and by the way, Shishak, the king itself, also we have a depiction of him in Egypt, and also there is an inscription that related to him. You can see on the left the picture, and you can see those small rounded signs with heads above them. Those are list of kings and places that he conquered during his journey. Unfortunately, Jerusalem is not mentioned in the Egyptian text, but some people think that the Egyptian king might be a very good candidate for stealing the Ark itself. Another interesting event that happened in the end of the 9th century BCE, and the end of the 9th century BCE, it's the story about the campaign of the king of Aram Damascus. His name is Hazael, king of Aram Damascus to Hazael, and we have very good evidence of that. Probably you heard a lecture by Professor Aaron Meir in the last 25 years. Professor Aaron Meir excavating one of the biggest sites in Israel, Tel Safi, and over there is a clear evidence of the destruction that Hazael and his soldiers did during their campaign to the land of Israel. And this is fascinating. We're talking about an enormous site that was erased. Now, Hazael itself, we know that after it destroyed several important cities in Israel, and then it destroyed the city of biblical Gath, the Philistine city of Gath, he aims to climb up to the Judea mountain to get to Jerusalem. And if reading in the Bible, we're talking about 2 King 12, then Hazael, king of Aram, went up and fought against Gath and took it. And Hazael set his face to go up to Jerusalem. Now, when he says he set his face, it means that he didn't do it yet. He's about to do it. And Josiah, king of Judah, took all the hallowed thing that Jehoshaphat and Jehoram and Ahaziah, his father, kings of Judah, had dedicated, and his own hallowed things, and all the golds that was found in the treasure of the house of the Lord and of the king's house, and sent it to Hazael, king of Aram. And he went away from Jerusalem. So could be that the Ark of Covenant and all the treasures inside the temple were sent to Aram, to Damascus. So where is the Ark of the Covenant? Really, where is the Ark of the Covenant? Because you can see that there are many candidates that could be along history that will take the Ark. But most of the time when people take, and I want you to understand something about biblical times. When we're talking about ancient wars, for example, when you're talking about ancient wars, who is fighting? People are not fighting, gods are fighting. For example, I see now in the, over here, the mosaic of all the people, I see Isaac, for example. Hello, Isaac. So Isaac, if you and I are fighting, so, and you win, I will consider it as a punishment by my God. Okay, because gods are fighting between themselves. So, for example, when the Philistine fought against the Israelite, when they lost, the Philistine took the Ark of Covenant and took it to the temple of Dagon at Ashdod. And when you bring the object that symbolizes other God and place it in front of your God, it means that your God won. And it's something that we know about it. In a minute, I'm going to talk about Meisha Stela also. We know that people carrying objects that symbolize gods. So in Egypt, they're not talking about this ark. And in Aram Damascus, we don't have sources that are talking about that ark. In the Bible, we don't have any sources that are talking about that ark. And also when Nebuchadnezzar exiled, the people is not talking about the ark. Again, in the Persian period, when we're talking about the book of Ezra, so over there, it's mentioned that Cyrus the Great, during 538 BCE, the Cyrus proclamation, give the liberty to the people under his control to go back to their homes. And in the book of Ezra, he's talking about several people that heading toward Jerusalem to reconstruct it. And probably you know the names Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, the person that constructed the second temple. And we have a list of all the things that he's sending with the people that aiming to go back. Shavet Zion is not mentioning the Ark of the Covenant. So where is the Ark of the Covenant? And this is something that really, really drive people, I don't want to use the term crazy, because although some people did, it drive them crazy, but this is something that is very interesting. Where can we find it? In order to understand that, let's go back, and I'm an archaeologist, so for me it's to go forward, but in modern times, let's go back to the year 1840, I'm sorry. 1840, Israel is being controlled for 300 years by the Ottoman Empire. From 1516, she controlled the area of Israel. And in the year 1840, something changed. What happened? In the year 1840, we have a time period, we're talking about 10 years, from 1840, from 1831 until 1840, 1831 until 1840, we're talking about 9-10 years that the Egyptians, and I'm talking about Muhammad Ali Pasha and his son Ibrahim Pasha, succeed in taking over the land of Israel, Lebanon, Syria, and almost reach Constantinople. Important to say that at the beginning, when we're talking about 1831, Muhammad Ali, he was a vassal of the Ottoman Empire. He was very loyal vassal. He helped them a lot. His son Ibrahim fought with them against the war of independence of the Greek people. But after that, or basically when he realized that the Ottoman Empire is quite weak, and he saw also the, we call it, I use the term interference of foreign institutes or foreign states. For example, Napoleon with France, and later the British, Russian, and of course when we're talking about those institutes, or again, I'm using the word institute, there is a reason, but we're talking about these nations, you understand that the Turks are quite weak. And why? Because using the term, or we're using today the terms that it's called the capitulation, and it means that nation that help you basically can create a semi-nation in your country. For example, if Avi today assists me, but if Avi helped me against fighting against someone, and as a reward, he would like to have an ambassador and a governor, and his people can come and be in my country, but not only as visitors, but as foreign citizens with rights. With rights. Now, Muhammad Ali really want to change the life of the Egyptian people. And he really want to change Egypt and to make it like a semi-small European country. So while conquering the land of Israel, first of all, he allowed foreign people and foreign forces to enter Egypt. Another thing it's important, he allowed people from Egypt to learn, not in religious institute, I'm talking about academical institute abroad. He also understand that the main problem that people are afraid not to come to Egypt or to that region, it's because there is a safety problem. So he's fixing the roads. And he also really solving the problem of road robbers. Because think about pilgrims that coming and have money, not a lot of money, and on the way they are being robbed. Not only that, if somebody was robbed, he also give them compensation and give them back their money. And he built universities. And this is something you should understand, it's quite radical because you really want to make the Egyptian world, and again, also the area underneath his control, modern. And look at this beautiful map. On the right side, you can see his son, Ibrahim. Ibrahim basically was the chief of his armed forces. He fought for him. And he later is going to become the leader, but again, he's going to be a leader for 1 year, and then he died. But when you're looking at the map, you can see that Egypt itself expanded after she assisted the Ottoman Empire fighting against the Greek. Now, for 9 years, from 1831 to 1840, they controlled this region. And then in 1840, what happened? There was again, those are the foreign forces. The Ottoman basically can't fight him. But Britain, France, Russia, and other places were quite worried that he's about to really destroy the Ottoman Empire. He gained force. He built a naval force. He fixed the road. People really admire him. We also know about radical, and again, in a way, radical things that he did. For example, there was a riot against him. Local people in the area of Israel today, and he basically brought people from Egypt, farmers, and moved them to the land of Israel in order that people are going to be loyal to him. And he's again, in the 9 years, the area of Israel, Syria, and Lebanon, but today we're going to concentrate in Israel, start to flourish. And that's something that I want you to remember, because that's the beginning. That's the beginning. Now, in 1840, what happened? He need to regress. He need to regress from all the area that he controlled, Lebanon, Syria, and Israel, and he basically heading back toward Egypt. Now, in 1840, we have an agreement. It's called the Convention of London. Now, look who's in the convention. First of all, Egypt is not there, but United Kingdom, Austria, Prussia, Russia, and the new Sultan, his name is Abdul Majid I. And the foreign countries, or the Western countries, are quite worried that they're going to lose their interest. They don't want someone strong over here. They prefer to have someone weak. And they forced Egypt to regress from that area. Now, when the Ottoman Empire controlled or recontrolled this area, she faced a new reality. First of all, she have those foreign people that are here, and I'm talking about foreign institutes. And soon we're going to expand a bit about them, because who are those people? For example, I want you to look at this map. This map was made, okay, by Charterwood in 1838. We're talking about 7 years after Egypt took control of this region. Now, the Charterwood itself, when he wanted to draw this map, he need to disguise himself. He wear clothes like an Egyptian officer, says that he's an engineer that related to Muhammad Ali, that nobody will bother him. And he was the first one to really describe in a very precise way the Al-Aqsa and the what we call Dome of the Rock. That's, people think that's the Golden Rock or the Golden Dome, the Dome of the Rock. And although we need to disguise, you can see that again, foreign people, and again, is foreign people starting to document, draw, make maps, start writing their own diaries, adventures, things that they saw, things that they think that are they're being criticized. But again, we can see that when Europeans are entering to the land, they're not doing it only for themselves, they are publishing the results. And when these results are heading back toward Europe, it costs something. Now, I want to say something that about us. And if you think about it, most of us, when we're traveling, we're going to places most of the time that people recommend us to go. For example, all of you know that you say, like, I need to buy vegetables. Somebody that is standing near you, I will tell you where are the best vegetables in the world. Like, if you come to Israel, my friend, and you are all your guest, all the Israeli knows where is the best falafel. And this is something that I want you to understand. When you are starting recommending and things, or sometimes say you whether not go there, you should go there, from that road, not from that road. What happened that people feel more, they feel safe. Like people like us were in a place that before nobody went, and there are roads, you can stay, there is food. And when people feeling safe, they start packing their things and start to fly. And look today, like in the last several decades, the places that we're reaching today. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And again, it's because that all of us, before we're traveling, we are reading, we're doing sort of research. Today it's earlier, we have TripAdvisor, we have other things that give us stars, and we trust people that we never met. We're following people that we don't know even who they are, but they said that that hotel is good and that's not good. We are joining to their experience. We're not trying to have our own experience. And what we can see that when European influence starts to flourish here, we can see wave of people that start attending the land of Israel. Now, when we're talking about the expansion of those foreign interests, we're talking about areas and really large places and land that being bought by foreign countries. For example, Russia buy their own field near the what you call the New Gate in Jerusalem, and built hospice over there, hostel, a place that people from Russia can stay. The Italian doing the same things, the American doing the same things. People buy properties, and those properties supposed to serve their own nationalities. Some of them also have their own post office. They're giving their own services, bank services. And again, remember that everything happened underneath the Ottoman control. Look at this beautiful picture that you can see from the, that's the facade of the Holy Sepulchre. And the amount of people, this is a picture that was taken during the Orthodox Easter. We're going to speak about it later. Now, who are the people that are coming? The people that are coming over here, many of them, people that would have a lot of faith and ideology. If you think about it, who are the first one to go? And they know that it's so dangerous, but they will do everything to get to the holy and sacred places for them. Most of them religious people, people that have a lot, or people with a lot of ideology. And to these groups, we can see that scholars are starting to escorting them on the way. And one of the most known one, and I'm talking now from the world of the academical world, his name is Edward Robinson. Maybe you heard it. You heard his name, Edward Robinson, and of course the Alice Smith. The story of Robinson, and those of you that visit Jerusalem, I don't know if you, some of you already visit Jerusalem, and I know that some of you are already from Israel. Everybody knows, I think, the most known remains of an arch. It's called the Robinson Arch in Jerusalem. We're talking about this person. He was the one to identify this arch. Now, why, for example, a scholar like that will come in the middle of the 19th century? So he was offered to be the head of the Bible literature department in New York, and he says that I don't mind to be the head of the board, but before I'm going to do it, I want to come to the Holy Land to see the places that I'm teaching people of. And again, remember, he's like, we're talking about the first one to do it. Today, it's very easy to find or get information about things. But he says, I want to go to the place, the Holy Land, to see where are the places that I'm talking of. And I'm reading from the Bible, I want to see it. And he was a theologian, but he also was a linguistic, and he was a geographer. When he arrived into the land of Israel, first of all, he's in shock. In his mind, he imagined like milk is in rivers and bread is maybe growing from the trees. But he look at small villages, he saw the abandoned, and he see many things that he wasn't so happy with. But that also gave him an idea that in order to understand what you have in biblical times, you need to not to look at what you see right now. You need to look for the roots of things. Now, he wasn't an archaeologist, he was a linguistic. So in many places when he traveled, he asked people for the name of the places. For example, if you get into Nablus, you ask people, what is the name Nablus? If you are linguistic, you know that B and P in Arabic are being, basically P is not being pronounced, only B. So when you're saying Nablus, it's supposed to be Naplus. Naplus sounds like Nea, new, Polis. Polis, it's a city-state. And it's a city-state that related to the Macedonian forces in the beginning of the Hellenistic period over here. He's learning the names, looking for the roots of the name, and he succeeded identifying more than 160 biblical places. Not only that, he also creating a map and placing all those places on the map. Now think about it, at the first time when people are now talking about the biblical time or biblical periods, they can see where sites are really located. Another thing that is important, I don't know where you're from, but probably there are people over here from all over the world. Maybe some of you can write in the chat where you're from. But do we have someone from, for example, Switzerland or Austria, Canada, States? No one. Okay. But I'm looking at the chat and nobody's saying that. But okay, we have Los Angeles. Los Angeles is very nice. Formerly Toronto, Canada. For example, if I'm telling my kids or my students, tomorrow we're going to visit, we're going to tour a river together, nobody in Israel will think that he maybe need bathing suits. We don't have water. We don't expect to find water in those rivers. But if you say river in Canada, for example, it's a river. What we call the Jordan River over here, probably some of you are going to call it a paddle in your states. When I'm saying about a mountain in Israel, 400, 500 meters above sea level, somebody that lives in the certain places in the States or in Europe or in Asia, they have mountains that are more than 1 or 2 kilometers. Think about it. It's unbelievable when using the same terms, but each one of you imagine different thing in their eyes. So for Edward Robinson and also for the other scholars that don't come, it's quite shocked to see that's the Holy Land, that's what we're reading all the time. And he understands, he's making a great, again, he published everything that he did. He's traveling in Sinai, in the desert, he's went to the Judean desert, he's going to Transjordan, Samaria. He published everything that he did. He published everything in a series of 3 books. He identified more than 160 sites. Most of them are accurate, and until today we recognize them. And that's really the first map. And for someone that lives in Alaska and need to imagine, when you're talking about a campaign between the site of Gezer or Joshua conquered Lachish, for the first time you can really see it. The meaning of distance. I have a family in Australia. Once that took me to their neighbors, it was more than 1 hour until we reached their neighbor. Distance in different places, people relating what we say close, far, big, small, it's totally different. And we can see that many of those scholars are trying to make maps, to draw things, to take pictures, and to bring this view of the Holy Land back to their own town. And you can see over here those beautiful maps, and that's the book that he published. We can see that later, also archaeological activity is being conducted. One of the most famous people that arrived, and again, this is a result of what happened after the Egyptian control of the land of Israel. We can see, for example, this famous, and I choose, again, for us, the archaeologists and historians, those are the VIP people, those are the stars. We have posters of them above our heads. So, for example, Professor William Matthew Flinders Petrie. Most of you, I hope that all of you heard his name, but for example, he was the one to understand the method, how can you date different sites? And he built the idea of typology of vessels and also the terms of stratigraphy. He also was the one to find this beautiful and amazing stela during his research. And that stela, it's called the Meir Neptach stela, was uncovered in 1896. That's the only evidence of the name Israel as an enemy that was mentioned by the Egyptian around 1213, 1214. And Meir Neptach was the son of Ramses II. And over here in that line, you can see Israel, describe him as a group, not as a city of people, an enemy of Egypt. That's the first time that Israel was mentioned. And that's a wow thing. That's really unbelievable. And look, when Europeans are coming, they're looking for those things. And you should understand, they bring it back home. The people coming, and for the first time, people see the name Israel. For the first time, people see the name Moab, Meisha. Remember that in the 19th century, we have many stories, or we know that many groups, different scholars, different theories. Some people call the Bible as a mythology, as a fake, not a real story. Some people said that the Bible was only written during the Hellenistic period. And suddenly, when you find things that say, or the Egyptian claim the name Israel, when you find people saying the name Omri, Yehu, people and events that mention in the Bible, that's, I think that all of you will agree with me, was a lot. Jerusalem itself, and again, many things happened in our region, but Jerusalem, we should understand that people are coming to Jerusalem. Some of them, at least the first expedition that coming over there, are coming from academical reasons and also from philanthropical reasons. Let's take an example. Charles William Wilson, he was did a very good survey of Jerusalem, but the survey was founded by a private person, by a baroness. And she, as a philanthropic person, she wanted to solve the problem of water of the people of Jerusalem, and he surveyed the area and created a map in order to look for water system. Because the issue of water in Jerusalem, it's an issue. Remember that the first running water after the time of King Herod, that we have fresh water running in the city is only when the British got to Jerusalem and they pump water from the Yarkon River near Petach Tikva. And he did a survey, again, as an engineer, but it was sponsored by a private not contractor, but again, a private person. The British saw Israel not only as a sacred place and a holy place, they also saw Israel as a very important junction that connect Africa, Europe, and of course, Asia. They have their own interests. Remember that another thing that they know that the French want to control this area and also the Germans. So those three nations, and most of the time it's German and Britain and of course France, are, I would say, fighting between themselves who's going to control what. And you can see that the race between them is by, of course, the army, by engineers, but a lot of it is by scholars that coming over here. And look at the map that I just mentioned. Look at this map, how accurate it is. How accurate it is. And that's something that really, before we didn't have anything. And suddenly during the 40s, or from the 1931 toward the beginning of the 20th century, the amount of data that coming from the land of Israel. In 1865, the British understand that they need to do something that is more than private people that just going over here and there. They need to give it a title, and they need to do something formal. And they're establishing the PEF, Palestinian Exploration Fund. It's a very, again, until today it's active, but it's really important group of scholars. Most of them are army veterans, or some of them during their time of service, coming to the land of Israel, drawing maps. And I'm just going to mention about Jerusalem because that's our topic, and it's related to the story that we are about to tell. The PEF itself have several, like very known, many excavations, but I want to mention like between 67 to 70, the war in Jerusalem, that was basically excavation, the war and the Birtles, the survey of Western Palestine, important map that until today we use it. In the 90s, the excavation of Tel Hassi, together with Petrie, the one that established the typology system that we archaeologists all over the world still using it until today. And of course, surveyed in the desert itself. Charles Warren is a person that we can say that from that point, our story starts, because he was sent by the PEF in 1967 to investigate the land of Israel and of course, Jerusalem. He was an engineer and he was an officer of the Royal British Corps. When he arrived to the land of Israel and he arrived to Jerusalem, he can't do anything that is close to the Temple Mount. I'm talking about Mount Moriah, where you have the Dome of the Rock and you have the Al-Aqsa Mosque. The Ottoman authority don't allow him to go near that place, but they allow him to survey and to excavate around. And we know about the adventure that he had, first of all, because he wrote things. And when people are writing, they exist. If they're not writing, they don't exist, unfortunately, although they did, but nobody knows. And he wrote about his campaign to Jerusalem, including drawings. You can see those beautiful drawings, like there is a guy holding a pickaxe over here with a candle. Inside the cave, you can see the dump and all those boulders over here. And look at the leg of this person. You can see that he's wearing uniforms, and he have a compass over here and a ruler, and he's measuring. And he was the one to identify a shaft in the water system of Jerusalem. The shaft that he identified, until today, we call it the Warren shaft. And he was the first one that really start investigating the water system of Jerusalem. If you look over here about this publication from 1900, okay, 1900, Palestinian Exploration Fund, the PEF, and this picture over here, you can see Charles Warren and his colleagues. They like to wear, some of them, local dress in order to be part of the atmosphere. He conducted excavation in south, as I told you, south of the Temple Mount, and he exposed massive fortification. He was sure that he uncovered biblical remains of the city of David. And when he entered the Gihon Spring, the only water source of Jerusalem, he uncovered this vertical shaft. He talking about it, he also wrote, and we have a picture of it. And he estimated that that shaft used the people in biblical time to carry water from the Tanit itself. Today we know things that they are a bit different. We know that the shaft itself, in a minute I'm going to show you some diagrams, served, and again, this is a question if it was served for pumping water, but this shaft is a natural shaft, and it was really uncovered by the biblical people in the 8th century BCE. Warren, when he identified the water system, he also looked at the archive of what people before him did, and he's trying to analyze the material from previous activities. For example, the Robinson Arch. The Robinson Arch is a very famous arch, as I mentioned, that it might connected the temple to the city itself, the water system. And just imagine that he sent everything, and people at England and Britain start looking at those pictures. Look at this beautiful picture that the Sergeant Henry Brutal that is trying to climb up with one hand under the candles. Look at the boulders, part of the Wailing Wall that collapsed by the Romans, or getting to an enormous cistern that have like several axes, and they call it the Great Sea. So those pictures really getting somewhere and causing people to come. For example, a very nice story, it's about something happened in 1968. In 1968, the first real or complete inscription was uncovered in a place in Jordan today. It's called Devon. This inscription is written in ancient Moabite. It was found by basically Bedouin identified it, and they brought over there Frederick Augustus Klein. He saw this inscription and he understood the importance of it. He tried to convince people to buy it. Unfortunately, he didn't convince hard enough, so the German didn't buy it. Who bought it? The French. The French government bought that inscription. It was published by Charles Clermont-Ganneau. When people for the first time saw inscription that mentioning the house of Omri, inscription that mentioning the name of God, Yud Kei Vav Kei, and talking about events that happening in the Bible, that was a proof that the Bible is true. And one of the famous stories that soon after this thing was uncovered, we know about, again, it's a story that started already from 1870, after this inscription was uncovered, or basically was published, the story about Moses Shapira. Moses Shapira and forgeries of statues and inscription with Moabite inscription. These artifacts, more than 1,700 of them, were sold to the German. They consider it to be the most important find, and in the same level of the Mesha inscription. And even when the French scholars, Charles Clermont-Ganneau, shouted over it, it's a fake, it's a forgery, nobody believed him because he says, because you are jealous that you didn't buy it. Unfortunately, the story of Moshe Shapira in 1883, he's gonna try to sell to the British Museum a scroll that he said that he got it from Bedouins that found it near the Dead Sea inside a storage jar. It's 60 years before the story of the real Judean scrolls. And over there, he told them that he has 15 pieces of leather with the real Deuteronomy book, the real book of Deuteronomy. How do you know it's real? For example, Moses is not dead there. And he asked for £1 million for that. And for 1 month, people examined that. And Charles Clermont-Ganneau, the same guy that uncovered the forgery at Jerusalem with those statues, got to London and revealed that it was a fake. Moses was so embarrassed. This is basically was published in a Punch in England from a paper. You can see over here how they getting Moses Shapira. All of you can see that the way that they describe Moses Shapira, although he was Christian, it's a very anti-Semitic way to show him. And we can see over here Ginsburg, the guy that basically caught him and taking the scroll out of his hand. He was he feels so bad. And after 3 days, they found him. He killed himself in the Holland. So it's really a sad story. But you can see that people find finds. The world is so eager to find more. People start to forge, and many people start to attend different sites and look to other sites. Remember that most of them don't have any right to do it. And more than that, they don't even know how to be archaeologists. I'm all the time saying to my students that the only profession in the world that you can say that I'm amateur archaeologist, it sounds professional. None of you will fly with an amateur pilot or do a surgery with an amateur doctor or a surgeon. None of you. But if you're saying this guy is an amateur archaeologist, it sounds professional. Most of them are not archaeologists. They dig in places that they want to dig. And it will change only when the British mandate will start. Only then they will stop that people will really need to get license in order to excavate. And again, there's a picture of other people that arrived and start surveying and excavating through the PEF, but not only the British. Look over here, 1877, German Society of Study Palestine. Gottlieb Schumacher is an amateur archaeologist, excavated at Megiddo. Konrad Schick was a missionaire. He was walking, he had a workshop that related to the London Institute of Converting Jewish People. Today it's called the Church of Emmanuel near Jaffa Gate. And Hermann Goethe, the one that translates the Silouan inscription. I see that there's things in the chat. Okay. Avi is just probably is boring. Is being bored and is writing new things as a text. I hope that you are not so bored. But you can see that very important find, that the Silouan inscription that we have it's not here. You can find it in Turkey, and it's not here. The Meisha Stela is not here. Excavating in Jerusalem, Megiddo, and other site. This is the Silouan inscription. Was found by student of Konrad Schick. And again, those finds were people that they are amateurs found it, took it, published it. Again, some people that did publish it did a great job, but at the end, it's not here in Israel, for example. If we want to see the finds that were uncovered in the tunnel that related to Hezekiah from the time of the Bible, it's not here. You need to go to to Turkey to look at it. The Gezer inscription, others. Our story, as I told you, starts with the research of the water system of Jerusalem. And why? Because the information of those scholars reach Europe and reach to academical institutes, and people starting to look at plans of Jerusalem, the topography of Jerusalem. In ancient time, people were collecting things, soil, animals, everything to understand the ancient world. As we mentioned the PEF and we mentioned the Germans, and we also need to mention the French. In 1890, the Saint-Etienne Monastery, together with a college nearby, the French School of the Bible, the École Biblique, that's the term, responsible to uncovering and doing archaeological work at the Madaba in Jordan, the excavation of our story of Montague Parker with the Father Vincent, Louis Igvetsan, Abu Ghosh, the Synagogue of Nahran, the Tirza, the biblical capital of Israel, Qumran, and more. And you can see that those institutes are, again, most of them are religious institutes, scholars that coming from abroad. That's a map, by the way, of the German Oriental Society. Look at the amount of sites that they uncover. If you want to see most of those sites, you need to go to the Pergamon or to the Neue Historia Museum at Berlin, and you can see the finds over there. And I'm not going to get into it, but thanks God, if you know what happened, what all of you are aware, what ISIS did to most of those sites today, the reason that we have any information is because most of those very important finds were saved in a way, or were taken to Europe. But I'm not going to get to this discussion because it's really important. The Hebrew sources, we don't have any Jewish institution that's dealing with archaeology. We don't have it. After, just before the First World War, we're going to have the first one, 1913. But before that, we don't have anything. But we do have newspapers. A newspaper, it's called the Amelitz. It's talking about, this is very interesting, look, the way it's described. London is a special company to demand and explore the antiquities in the land of Israel. The owner of this company and the manager are not Jewish, but love of Zion in their heart, and the Holy Land will happen in their eyes. In the summer of the past, on the smart man, and his name Kunder. He says over here Kunder, but it's Kunder, and he's talking about the excavation. We can see over here that they're documenting everything, so taking pictures. But then what happened? The Ottoman authority allowed those people to arrive. They're not allowed to excavate in the Temple Mount, only in the surrounding. But in 1908, we know that that's basically the end of the regime or the dynasty of the Sultan, and the young Turk revolt in Turkey. And modern Turkey, as you know it today, and you can see this beautiful picture over here. You can see that freedom is described like a woman, and those officers cutting the chain. And Turkey that we know today really starts at that period. Now, one of the things that the young Turks, or basically the members of the board of the young Turks, they really support education and modern education. And they let the West, again, support the Western people to influence them and to learn from them, because they really want to bring back the Ottoman Empire to a greatness after 400 years of decay. At that time, we're talking about 1908, at that time, we know about several events that happened. Also, the American built their own institute. But in Finland, we know about a poet, a translator of books, translate many books, a librarian in a certain time, also a surveyor, something, it's a profession that he learned from his father. His name was Walter Henrik Juvelius. Walter Henrik Juvelius, he died in 1922 from throat cancer. In 1907, he received his PhD after submitting his dissertation in the University of Helsinki. At that time, it was called the Alexander University. And the PhD, or the dissertation, dealt with the chronology of the Jewish world. You can see him over here, and basically Western clothes, and over here a picture that was done when he was excavating in Israel. We know that he had access to books, and he was really interesting in the water system of Jerusalem. And in front of you, you can see over here a drawing by Whitty from 1864 that show, again, it's a theory, totally a theory, that show you that there's water system is linked directly to the Temple Mount. Again, from the area of Hezekiah Tunnel, there is a straight link to the Temple Mount. This guy, this Finnick, again, he's a scholar, but he's not dealing with archaeology. He's really interesting in the Bible. He considered that the progress in exploring the water system and different shafts in the city of David, he considered it to be part of a map. It's a coded map, that the key to understand those shafts that will lead you to a sacred place. It's a sacred chamber that over there, the Ark of Covenant and the treasure of the temples are hidden. He was sure, he was sure, and you can see on the left drawing that he did, that the code itself, you can trace him if you're going to examine the book of Ezekiel, and he was sure that the secret of that code is passing from generation to generation between Jewish people. He was sure that he can point out to the exact place that the treasure are there. The problem was that when he started telling people that, people didn't take him so seriously. And he started drawing maps, and he pointed different shafts. And he, according to what we know, really, or he claimed that he uncovered the code of Ezekiel, and he uncovered the code that can lead you straight to the treasures of the temple. And over here in the picture, you can see him sitting near the Warren Shaft in Jerusalem. He tried to raise money, he didn't succeed raising money. People, most of them didn't take him seriously. And he really didn't have luck until he met a person, his name was Parker. Who is Parker? Parker is an aristocrat, he's a British aristocrat. He talked with him and he explained to him his method, and he told him that he solved a very important problem, and he would like to share it with him, and he would like to make him as a partner. And together they're going to look for one of the most important treasures that you can uncover in Jerusalem. Although in other sources it says that he didn't really mean to find the treasures of Solomon, he wanted to uncover the tomb of Moses. But he convinced Parker. Now, Parker is, as I told you, is a British aristocrat. He was a British officer, and he was very well familiar, and his family was known with very rich people, and he succeeded in raising $125,000. Remember, we're talking about 1909. It's an amount of money that you can, today will be considered several $1 million. They form a company in London. The name of the company is this weird letters that you see over here, JMPFW. Each letter represents one of the expedition members, Juvelius, Milan, Parker, Ford. And after making their own company, now it's formal, they decided that they want to go to Jerusalem and start excavating. Montagu Brunlow Parker, over here you can see a picture of him as a kid and then as an officer. He was a captain in the Grenadier unit under Her Majesty. He was fighting in the Boer War, and most of the people that were going to join into the excavation going to be friends of him from the army. Okay, I'm talking about the Boer War, and I'm talking about the second one, not the first one, the second Boer War in South Africa. And you can see the symbol of his hat. That's the symbol of his unit. Now, he meet with his friend, tell him about this beautiful opportunity. First of all, it's an adventure. And noblemen, we know that they really like those adventures. And they have a great opportunity to go, first of all, to an adventure. Then they have also opportunity to get a lot of money, because from what Juvelius told Parker, we're talking about the enormous amount of treasures. So he convinced his friend to join him. They're doing it, and they also using a yacht. They're using it on August 1909. They're basically sailing after they bought the newest, on the cutting edge equipment that expedition can imagine to have even today, and they brought it with them. Over you can see the port of Jaffa. When they arrive to Jaffa, they will very fast going to start excavating. But before they're going to start excavating, we should understand that they need to get a license. They need to get a permission, because a group of noble people coming with enormous amount of equipment want to start excavating. They can't tell anyone that they're looking for the treasures of the King Solomon. So they need to find a permission. Over here you can see Lieutenant Colonel Cyril Foley, that he gave his, again, 1926, he published his memories from the adventure. He said over here, London, October 11, further revelation regarding the archaeological expedition which attempt to find the Ark of the Covenant on the site of Solomon's Temple were made by Colonel Cyril Foley, who headed the expedition. He wasn't headed of the expedition. Continuing his story in the Sunday Express here, Colonel Foley explained why the search for the Ark failed. Why it failed, you need to wait for several minutes. He claims that they excavate and they found a lot of broken sherds mostly. And he claiming that the reason that the expedition failed, so now we are creating attention, you need to wait for several minutes. The group got to Jerusalem. First they got and they settled in Augusta Victoria on Mount of Olives. and they settled. Everybody was so surprised from this group with all their equipment. Even the local governor came to them on his own, didn't even invite them. He went to see them, and he brought food and celebrate. And they told everyone that they're going to do research. They're going to deal with water system. People were quite curious about what they're doing, but quite fast when they promised people jobs and promised them that they're going to fix the problem of the water, you're going to have fresh water. And many people, mostly from the village of Siloam, joined them and helped them in their excavation. Honker was sent to Istanbul to get a permission. When he got there, he tried to convince them why they should give him a license. And at the end of the day, he told them, listen, we're looking for a treasure. And if I'm going to find the treasure, you're going to get 50% of all of it. And that was enough to convince them to give him a permission. So he get the contract. And this contract was signed by the Prime Minister, Mehmet Kamil, and the Finance Minister. From Istanbul, everybody are waiting for him in Jerusalem. He's heading back to Jerusalem. When he's coming to Jerusalem, there is a problem. There is a new prime minister now in Istanbul and a new minister of finance. So the local governor says, listen, I don't agree with you. What you say over in the agreement, I don't accept it. So we need to get back to Istanbul and speak with the new prime minister, Hilami Pasha. And he explained to him why it's important, convinced him, and he gave him his blessing. He's coming back to Jerusalem, and he got a letter by the Hilami Pasha that says that the reason that they need to excavate there because they are planning to build an hospital. Okay, this is something that just in order to calm all the curious people surrounding them. They're buying a part of a property near the water system that Warren, we mentioned Warren shaft, was uncovered because Giovanelli says that that's the entrance to one of those shafts. And as soon as we're going to go inside, you're going to look for the tunnels, and those tunnels will lead them directly to the Temple Mount, and over there, they're going to find a chamber with all the treasures. So in 1909, they start excavating. Many people from the Siloam village helped them. But if you look at this beautiful picture, you can see Montague Parker, that's the head of the excavation. And you can see over here some weird name, Habib Bey, Hagup Makashdar, and Abdul Aziz Effendi. Abdul Aziz Effendi and Habib Bey are two officers that were sent from Istanbul to see that they're gonna, if they're gonna find money or they're gonna find treasure, that they need to save or take care of the interest of their leadership. And also they have Hagup over here. He was an Armenian, and he served as translator, as a coordinator. Except that you can see the European people. And this is a really beautiful pictures with all their clothes ready to excavate. They have a lot of money, remember? And in August 1909, they're breaking the soil. Over here, you can see the place that they stayed. That's where the expeditions stayed. And this is one of the entrances into the shaft. In 1909, they entering to the ground. Remember, they're not excavating like today in squares. They're looking for shafts and getting into the shaft itself. 1909, breaking the soil. They're getting inside the Warren shaft, or the area of the Warren shaft. It's full with mud. It's full with mud. And they start hiring people to take all the mud out. The mud is being piled outside. Many people look at it and ask themselves, whoa, what are we going to do with all the soil? Something is happening over there. What are they doing over there? Many people, many curious people joined them. This book that we mentioned this person before because he was giving an interview in the paper, but Foley itself wrote a book about his adventure over there. And this is really, look at the way that he described it. Over my head was a huge dome or vaulted roof, running up the right steep passage, outfilled as far as I could see with great boulders. Nothing would have induced me to leave that ladder, for the slope appeared to be slippery as ice, but the dim light of the candle, it looked a grim and ghastly spot, and I could not help remembering that I was probably the fourth man, listen to that, the fourth human being who had looked on it for 1,800 years. Look at it, like I'm the first person after 800 years, the first one that's looking at those stones. I was just about to descend when I heard a movement away up at the passage, and in my horror, something came rushing down it with the speed of thought. Before I could move, he's falling down on the ground. Over here, you can see that is what the shilling sockers, those books that got those nicknames that you can basically buy them for shilling and describing things like all kind of adventures. The shilling shockers of years gone by would have been described as a sickening splash into 2 feet. It's really described as they're climbing, they're going using candles, and it's experienced. But my friends, they don't find anything. They found broken vessels. And Juvelius is giving them all kind of an explanation, what they're supposed to do. And many people start to criticize them, the Jewish community, the Christian community, and other institutes over here. Most of the institutes don't have enough money, and that private group excavate like the expedition that everybody can dream of, and they're criticizing them that they are amateurs. So what they're doing, they decided to solve that problem, and they are hiring a real archaeologist. The father of Vincent, I mentioned his name, Louis Vincent. He basically served as a fig leaf to cover the proclamation that they are amateurs. They didn't allow him to ask what they're doing. He wrote it down in his book. He's the only one that wrote something seriously. And he wasn't allowed to even suggest to them, to suggest what to do. He was there in order that they can say, we have a professional institute. Now, thanks God, he really used this opportunity because he have a cutting edge equipment everybody can just dream of. And during the time that they're excavating and they don't want anything from him, he's really documenting what they're doing. He's really documenting the tunnels, the Hezekiah tunnel, the Warren shaft. They uncover tombs from the 3rd millennium. He records them. He's doing accurate map. Until today, we're using those maps. And it's quite funny that from looting excavation, the most important academical information or scientific information of ancient excavation, they give it to us. So those are the finds. Again, think about it that today we archaeologists are going to be more than happy to see it, but they are looking for treasures. We can see over here pottery that they identified it as the 4th millennium. Later, Professor Aaron Meyer and his colleagues re-examined it in 1992 and give it a different date. And that's the archaeologist. We have this beautiful book, Underground Jerusalem, with all those drawing. And really, this is the most accurate drawing and measurements that we can get. And really, he did an amazing job. Important to know that he didn't understand who is the group that he's messing with. Now, during the fall, there was heavy rain, and all the tunnels that they excavated filled with mud and water. They need to stop their walk. They stopped their walk and decided that they're going to go back to until during the winter, they're going to resupply themselves. Unfortunately, Juvelius got sick. He got malaria. And they decided that they're going to come back in 1910, and they only start excavating in 1911. Juvelius didn't got back. When they got back in 1911, Parker, as the head of the expedition, decided that he's not going to go anymore into those tunnels filled with mud. He really want to find the treasures, and he's going to do what he thinks is the right thing to do. And he decided that he's going to excavate directly at the Temple Mount. Now, at 1911, April 1911, something very interesting happened. The Jewish Passover, and you can see on the right people on the Wailing Wall. The Greek Orthodox Easter, that's on the left in front of the Hoy Sepulchre, and a holiday that's being celebrated from the time of Salah ad-Din al-Ayyub, what we call the Nebi Musa festival, Nebi Musa near Jericho. We're talking about overlapping of 3 holidays. Jerusalem at that time is full with people from those 3 religions. And Parker decided that that's a great opportunity because the governor need to take care of everything in the city because the city is now full, and it's very, if you think about it, Christianity, Islam, and Jewish together celebrating religious, and Nebi Musa is also a national holiday. Later it was forbidden. And when we have sources about what are people, or what, like, for example, Muslims think about the Temple Mount. For Jews, we know that in Jewish tradition, that's the place that God found the world, the stone of foundation. We know that over there, the temple was built around or basically the Holy of Holy was around a stone that we consider it as the place that Isaac was almost sacrificed by Abraham. We have other tradition about the entrance to the heaven. Christianity, this place wasn't supposed to be built after the Jewish will join Christianity, but in Islam, for them, this is a place that the Prophet Muhammad, during his night journey, got the instruction how to pray. Okay, and he did his night journey of sacred animal. It's called a burak. That's according to the Sunni tradition. When we have a source from 1964 that basically talk about people that travel over and collect all kind of stories and beliefs, they're talking, look at that, as evil spirits grow under the mountain of the Holy Rock. Okay, condemned to bear the weight of the vast plateau and the holy places. Whenever the faithful Muslim comes to the soil of the Haram, the weight of his body increases the burden of the burden. If devotion are numerous and frequent, the suffering of the demons are increased by the same amount. Then they burst into tears. The more hardened the zeal of the believer, the more reservoir in which the tears of the enemy of God are collected in the field. And you can understand that it's basically convincing people, if you have faith, come and visit the mosque. When you're coming, basically you are fighting against those demons and we're collecting their tears. So for the Muslim, it's a very sensitive place. He decided that he's going to excavate over there. 17th of April, 1911, at the night, he decided that with his group, remember, Giovanellis is not here, he is going to excavate. Now, how can you enter over there? You don't have ladders, you don't have stairs. You need to come with our rappelling equipment in order to get down into the shafts. How we do it? He basically used his power with money. He decided to bribe the person that charged over the Temple Mount, giving $25,000. Remember, 1911, his name was Sheikh Khalil. And he promised him that during the night, we're going to excavate over here, see that nobody visit the mosque at night. And for something like 7 to 10 days, they excavated until one night, one of the guards started shouting, people are excavating at the Dome of the Rock. Now, we don't know exactly what happened. We do know that some people claim that, again, a local or religious person decided to sleep at the dome. Some people say it's a guard that wasn't satisfied with the money that he got in order not to come there. But we do know, remember, that we have 3 religions now celebrating their holidays, and suddenly they are robbing the mosque. And Parker understands that that's the end. He understands that if they're going to get him, that's the end. He's leaving everything behind him. In modern excavation that were conducted in the city of David, they also find buckets of that expedition. He and his friend are not even trying to explain something. They leave everything and heading as fast as possible to Jaffa. Why to Jaffa? Because at Jaffa they have a modern yacht, if you remember, that waits for them. As soon as they get into Jaffa, the local police at Jerusalem understand that something happened, and people start claiming that they saw them running with boxes or with artifacts in their hands, and they ran so fast. The police announced Jaffa. Basically, they used the telegram line that was running along the railroad from Jaffa to Jerusalem, that was constructed in 1892, announced the people at Jaffa, stop those English people that are trying to run away. They stopped them and start interrogating them. And they convinced them, listen, we don't mind to be interrogated, but why doing it over here? Let's do it in our yacht. It's comfortable, let's go over there, tell your officers to visit us over there, you're going to be our guest, and you can ask us whatever you want. And they convinced them. The local police allowed them to go to the yacht and expect for the officer to come. As soon as they got on the yacht, they sailed away and lived. That's the map that shows you the place of excavation. For more than 1 year, they're looking at the tunnels near the city of David. After they fall and Jovellanos didn't come back, he decided to excavate in the Temple Mount. You can see how the newspapers all over the world, and I'm talking about really all over the world because it was quoted in the States. It also got to the Muslim community in India, in Britain. And you can see over here what tragic fate awaits to the Parker robbers. Extraordinary, and again, the extraordinary story about them, and you can see a map that's showing from the tunnels that from wherever they came. You can see over here, In Search of the Lost Ark of the Covenant, amazing story of the British expedition, which excavated the Solomon Temple. A mysterious expedition, and you can see with pictures showing the Ark of the Covenant and other, again, records of people that claim that they saw them taking things. And I think that the thing that I love the most, it's like the wanted sign over here from May 1911, gone with treasures that was Solomon's. English party vanished on a yacht after digging under the Mask of Umar, said to have king's crown. Also his ring and sword. Turkish government sent high officials to Jerusalem to investigate. And that's also from the Daily News in the States. Fear diggers took Ark of the Covenant. Riots in Jerusalem. Follow report that English excavator removed sacred relics at the work of 2 years, said to bribe guards of the Mask of Umar. And it's continued. The version, this is the version of the events, but I see that again, it was supposed to be 1 hour, but as an archaeologist, I don't have a lot of friends, so I found it's very comfortable to speak with you guys. But I hope you don't mind to give me like 2-3 minutes. But when we're looking about the other member of the group trying to explain what happened, so we can see the version of Foley. Remember Foley itself that we mentioned before? He says the results of the excavation, this part I enlarged it from the bottom of something that was, again, it was published in 1926. The result of the excavation destroyed the hope of finding the Ark. Foley relates, but left the possibility of finding the tomb of Solomon, David, and Hezekiah, who were buried somewhere on Mount Ophel. It was decided to resume work in 1910, but in the meantime, several members of the expedition suffered. And again, this is the thing that we mentioned. Some of them were sick, they got back and started excavating. And he's talking about it that at the end, they were blamed for stealing things that they didn't took. Also, Juvelius, he wasn't there. And that's very interesting because he wrote a book in 1916, it's called The White Camel, describing the story from his side. And according to this experience that we have underneath the Mask of Umar, he was never there, but he's writing it like he was there. So he claimed, and he says, according to the Juvelius, the expedition never excavate near the Temple Mount and near the holy places. Another thing is that he says that we have the French archaeology with us, and it's a scientific excavation. It's not a looting excavation. We are not robbers. He said that, and I found it quite funny, he said that the expedition greatest enemies were the press. We spread unsubstantiated rumors, and he also blamed the Jews, of course, that they were really against the excavation. By the way, we do know that the Jews, the Jewish community really didn't love or was against it. And we know that they convinced the benefactor, Edmond de Rothschild, and he bought the area above their excavation in order to supervise what they're doing. He sent over there an archaeologist, his name was Raymond Weil, and he uncovered what he thought at the beginning, that those are the tomb of King David, but he uncovered a very important inscription from the Second Temple. The end, my friend, in 1916, under his pen name, Hekiki Keneta, he published a book about his adventure. He later worked, Juvenalis, he worked as a librarian, and he redrew the maps. He never got back the maps that he drew. They claimed that it was lost because they ran away, they left everything in the hotel. So he redrew the maps, but when people try to examine it, you can't really understand anything of it. Unfortunately, he died on Christmas in 1922, only on the age of 57. And again, this is a fascinating guy, and nobody can really speak with him and talk with him and understand what happened. The Jewish newspaper really were full with advertising. This is from the Mitzpeh on 1911. It's talking about the Muslims in Jerusalem were quite upset because of the rumor that English scholars excavated in the place of the Holy Temple, and they, according to the Turkish officer, they took the vessels that were belong to the temple itself and took them with them to England. Okay, this is very interesting, and the Atzfira about, again, the story, they're talking about it, that they steal and they took treasures with them, Acherut, and all of that. Those are Jewish newspapers dealing with that information. And in terms of result, the most important result are remains of tombs from the early Bronze Age. Less fascinating for popular lectures, but really fascinating for us archaeologists. The drawing of the tunnels in an accurate manner by the father and son. And because of the pressure of this expedition, Edmond de Rothschild buy property and Raymond Weil coming and excavating. This is the place that he excavated. We know today it was a quarry, but he identified it as the tomb of King David. Cleaning it up, he uncovered a beautiful inscription that it's called the inscription of Theodotus. And this is the only evidence, or really clear evidence, that there was a synagogue in Jerusalem during the time of the temple. And that was uncovered over there. So that's the story, my friend. 1830, European influence, things that happened between Egypt and the Ottoman Empire caused foreign influence to enter the land of Israel. Many scholars, many pilgrims, many religious people really start to find interest or aim to find the places that they see them as the core of their faith and belief. Most of them were honest people. Most of them were scholars. Most of them were righteous. But when there's a lot of demand for biblical sources, unfortunately, there was also stories of forgery, people that want to steal, to influence history by taking it and making their own position. So this is a fascinating story of the Parker expedition. I'm really happy that you stay with me. They told me to speak 1 hour, but it's impossible. I never speak only 1 hour. So I hope that you find it interesting. And if there's any questions, I don't mind to answer you. And if not,
I just opened to everybody the possibility to unmute themselves, because the only question
I'm sorry, couldn't hear.
I open to everybody. If anybody wants to ask a question, people can unmute themselves. The only question I saw here was the question, question, where is the ark?
I can barely, I'm sorry, maybe it's the problem with my computer. I can't hear you.
We'll try again. The question that was asked in the chat, you can hear me? No.
I can, maybe you should write down in the chat the only question that you want to ask. I see there is a question by Milton that says that, where do you think the ark is?
Yes, okay.
Milton, only if you're going to join me to an expedition, we're going to look for it. I'm not going to tell you now. Later, you want to have 50% of it? No, it's impossible. By the way, it's very interesting, but we do have, people until today claim that they saw the Ark of Covenant, but where it is, you need to join us to the next session of lecture about other people that did weird things in order to find the evidence of ancient artifact. But Leonas, you want to ask something?
Did Parker disappear on his way back to England?
No, Carter didn't disappear. Carter got back. By the way, when the people ask him what you did, and people like blame you for being a robber, you claim that everything is like it. This is not true and it's not real. Many people looked at him to see if something changed. People see if they something changes with the way of life. Like if he's hiding all those treasures, maybe we can see that suddenly he's become more richer or more rich. But no, apparently they didn't succeed to anything. But you know, this is like people start telling stories. I know him, I saw him, they took things with them. Nobody knows exactly where the Ark of Covenant, nobody knows what happened to it. We do know that in ancient time, it was quite common that if you are suffering from an enemy attack, they will loot your temple. Looting temples basically show that your God didn't save you or didn't take care of you. And also when you're reading the Bible, when we are being punished, the punishments that we get from God, God brought at us the Assyrian, God brought at us the Babylonian. It's considered to be a punishment. And I'm fully hope that maybe one day, at least part of the temple or treasures that related to the temple going to be uncovered. But even if not, it's a great story to tell to our kids. Any questions?
There was a question if Parker took something with him.
Nobody knows, but I don't think so. I can tell you that, my friends, that we are excavating Jerusalem, the land of, again, we have many students and former students that today excavating, and the Israeli Antiquity Authority excavating in Jerusalem. The problem is that you don't find those, we did never find these treasures. But again, we have, and we do know that in temples, people did keep their sacred things, important objects. It's something that continues on not only from the biblical time, but onwards from the Persian, Hellenistic, and Roman period. Probably it was looted. What happened, people did with it, we never know. But again, as I told you, I do believe, and I'm all the time thinking about it, that that's what's great in archaeology, that all the time you can find something new, that it's old, basically. So we should continue excavating. We don't have a lot of information about excavation in Jordan. We don't have a lot of information about happening in Syria. And only time will tell. So the only thing that you need to do is to join us, join our excavations, and to be part of it, revealing the past. So thank you, all of you. You were the best. Thank you, Avi, for assisting me. And I know that you were supposed to stay for 1 hour, but look what happened. And thank you.
Thank you very much for everybody listening and joining us for this series. And hopefully we will do other public events in the future. You still be able to watch series and lecture in our YouTube channel anytime.
Avi, I didn't hear you, but because I know you, I agree with everything that you said.
Okay, hope all the others were able to listen to hear me well. Okay, and people are thanking you for a fascinating talk, Amit. So it was a really great talk to end our series with that. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Have you again.
Bye.